Good evening, friends, fiends, and night owl supremes. Welcome to A Bit Late, where tonight we are reading a fairy tale, the story of the Fisherman and His Wife. And this one was actually requested on the channel a bit, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy reading it. There's illustrations in the version I'm reading, and they look really adorable. There's a particularly round flounder that I'm looking at right now, so maybe I'll put that on the thumbnail. We'll see. You already know the answer to this though, but right now, I'm wondering what the answer will be. Anyway, do get comfy, get cozy, summon your animal familiars about you, gather blankets, pillows, build your forts, get your tea or coffee or hot chocolate ready, and follow me into the story of the Fisherman and His Wife. There was once a fisherman and his wife who lived together in a little hut close to the sea. And the fisherman used to go down every day to fish, and he would fish and fish. Understood. So he used to sit with his rod and gaze into the shining water, and he would gaze and gaze. Now, once the line was pulled deep under the water, and when he hauled up a large flounder with it. "Hey, buddy," the flounder said to him. "Listen, fisherman, I pray you to let me go. I am not a flounder. I am an enchanted prince." "Of course they are. What good will it do you if you kill me? I shall not taste nice. Put me back in the water and let me swim away." "Well," said the man, "you need not make so much noise about it. I am sure I had much better let a flounder that can talk swim away." "Yes, you should, sir. We read a story on this channel called The Girl Fish." But really she changes into like every animal you can imagine. But she insisted her mother cook the talking fish, despite the fish saying, "I will curse you if you eat me." She was cursed. Oh well, but this man seems way more wise than the spoiled little girl. So, I hope. We'll see? So he lets the flounder swim away. With these words, he put him back again into the shining water, and the flounder sank to the bottom, leaving a long streak of blood behind. "No, buddy." Then the fisherman got up and went home to his wife in the hut. "Husband," said his wife, "have you caught nothing today?" "No," said the man. "I caught a flounder who said he was an enchanted prince, so I let him swim away again." "Did you wish nothing from him?" said his wife. "No," said the man. "What should I have wished from him? I didn't know that was a thing you were supposed to do." "Ah," said the woman, "it's dreadful to have to live all one's life in this hut that is so small and dirty. You ought to have wished for a cottage. Go now and call him. Say to him that we choose to have a cottage, and he will certainly give it to you." "But he's cursed or enchanted." "Maybe enchanted is better because they can grant wishes. But, I mean, if he could, wouldn't he wish to not be a fish anymore? I don't know. Fairy tales. Maybe the prince prefers to be a fish. He wants to be where the fishies are." "Alas," said the man, "why should I go down there again?" "Why," said his wife, "you caught him and then let him go again, so he is sure to give you what you ask. Go down quickly." The man did not like going at all, but his wife was not to be persuaded. He went down to the sea. When he came there, the sea was quite green and yellow and was no longer shining. So he stood on the shore and said, "Once a prince, but changed you be into a flounder in the sea. Come, for my wife Isabel wishes what I dare not tell." I like how he's absolutely doing what his wife is asking, but he's like, I don't know about this fish. It's adorable. Then the flounder came swimming up and said, "Well, what does she want?" "Alas," said the man, "my wife says I ought to have kept you and wished for something from you. She does not want to live any longer in the hut. She would like a cottage." "Go home then," said the flounder. "She has it." Whoa, it worked. Well, the wife's always right. So the man went home, and there was his wife no longer in the hut, but in its place was a beautiful cottage, and his wife was sitting in front of the door on a bench. She took him by the hand and said to him, Come inside and see if this is not much better." They went in, and inside the cottage was a tiny hall and a beautiful sitting room and a bedroom in which stood a bed, a kitchen, and a dining room, all furnished with the best of everything and fitted up with every kind of tin and copper utensil. So they didn't just get an upgraded living house situation, they had upgraded everything. And outside was a little yard in which there were chickens and ducks, and also a little garden with vegetables and fruit trees. My stomach is getting hungry and growling. "See," said the wife, "isn't this nice?" "Yeah, it is." "Yes," answered her husband. "Here we shall remain and live very happily." "We will think about that," said his wife. "Oh no, oh no." She's not satisfied with that. Uh-oh. With these words, they had their supper and went to bed. All went well for a week or a fortnight. Then the wife said, "Listen, husband, the cottage is much too small, and so is the yard and the garden. The flounder might just as well have sent us a larger house. I should like to live in a great stone castle. Go down to the flounder and tell him to send us a castle." Oh, I take back what I said about her always being right. Take it back so soon. I should have known better. We know how these work, these fairy tales. "Ah, wife," said the fisherman, "the cottage is quite good enough. Why do we choose to live in a castle?" "Why?" said the wife. "You go down, the flounder can quite well do that." "No, wife," said the man. "The flounder gave us the cottage. I do not like to go to him again. He might take it amiss." "Go," said his wife. "He can certainly give it to us and ought to do so willingly. Go at once." "Why though? Why should he have to?" The fisherman's heart was very heavy and he did not like going. He said to himself, "It is not right." Still he went down. When he came to the sea, the water was all violet and dark blue and dull and thick and no longer green and yellow, but it was still smooth. So he stood there and said, "Once a prince, but changed you be into a flounder in the sea. Come, for my wife Isabel wishes what I dare not tell." "What does she want now?" said the flounder. "Ah," said the fisherman, half ashamed. "She wants to live in a great stone castle." "Go home, she is standing before the door," said the flounder. The fisherman went home and thought he would find no house. When he came near, there stood a great stone palace, and his wife was standing on the steps about to enter. She took him by the hand and said, "Come inside." Then he went with her, and inside the castle was a large hall with a marble floor. And there were heaps of servants who threw open the great doors. That's a really weird way to describe a number of people. Heaps? Like, are they a pile? A mass of arms and legs that move to open every door as you walk through? That's disturbing. Sorry. This is a nice, easy story, and I made a chimera out of everybody in the castle for you tonight. Sorry about that. Anyway, the heaps of people are pushing open the doors, and the walls were covered with beautiful tapestries. And in the apartments were gilded chairs and tables, and crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. And all the rooms were beautifully carpeted. Ooh, fancy fans. The best of food and drink was also set before them when they wished to dine. And outside the house was a large courtyard with a horse and cow stables and a coach house, all fine buildings. And a splendid garden with the most beautiful flowers and fruit. But no vegetables, I see. They're gonna miss those salads. And in a park quite a league long were deer and roe and hares, and everything one could wish for. So he doesn't really need to fish at all anymore. He didn't need to fish at the cottage because they had chickens and hens in the little backyard. And here there's game and fruit. No veggies though. You gotta eat your greens. "Now," said the wife, "isn't this beautiful?" "Yes, indeed," said the fisherman. "Now we will stay here and live in this beautiful castle and be very happy." For Forever, right? Forever? We will consider the matter. Oh no, said his wife, and they went to bed. The next morning, the wife woke up first at daybreak and looked out of the bed at the beautiful country stretched before her. Her husband was still sleeping, so she dug her elbows into his side and said, "Husband, get up and look out of the window. Could we not become the king of all this land? Go down to the flounder and tell him we choose to be king." What if this is the prince's domain? Like, you can't just claim it like that. It's not how it works. Boundaries are invisible things. The fish isn't just gonna be like, sure, here's a stake in the ground. It's now yours. Glub, glub. "Ah, wife," replied her husband and us. "Why should we be king? I don't want to be king." Super unlike Simba here. "Well," said his wife, "if you don't want to be king, I will be king. Go down to the flounder. I will be king." I feel like she needs to go to the flounder for this. I know he caught the flounder, so maybe that's why it has to be him that goes down, but look, she's the one with all these dreams and ambitions. She should maybe ask for him herself. "Alas, wife," said the fisherman, "why do you want to be king? I can't ask him that." "And why not?" said his wife. "Go down at once. I must be king." I do find it adorable that the husband's like, "No, I can't do that because it would be rude." And the wife's like, "Well, why not? You just can go and ask." Like, he's asking her to look a little deeper at her requests. And she's like, "No, but you just still have to go down to the fish, right?" Oh no, palaces and kingdoms don't buy happiness, right? Or maybe they do. Maybe that's the moral of the story. We'll find out. And I'll get back on track. So the fisherman went, though much vexed that his wife wanted to be king. "It's not right, it is not right," he thought. He did not wish to go, yet he went. When he came to the sea, the water was as a dark gray color, and it was heaving against the shore. Ooh, it's not still and calm anymore. So he stood and said, "Once a prince, but changed to be into a flounder in the sea. Come, for my wife Isabel wishes what I dare not tell." "What does she want now?" asked the flounder. "Alas," said the fisherman, "she wants to be king." "Go home, she is that already," said the flounder. And she was sort of acting that way, wasn't she anyway? The fisherman went home, and when he came near the palace, he saw that it had become much larger. What? And that it had great towers and a splendid ornamental carving on it. A sentinel was standing before the gate, and there were numbers of soldiers with kettle drums and trumpets. And he went into the palace and found everything was of pure marble and gold, and the curtains of damask with tassels of gold. Fancy. Then the doors of the hall flew open, and there stood the whole court round his wife, who was sitting on a high throne of gold and diamonds. She wore a great golden crown and had a scepter of gold and precious stones in her hand. And by her on either side stood 6 pages in a row, each one head taller than the other one. That's amazing. Then he went before her and said, "Ah, wife, are you king now?" "Yes," said his wife, "I am now king." He stood looking at her, and when he had looked for some time, he said, "Let that be enough, wife. Now that you are king, now we have nothing more to wish for." "Nay, husband, oh no, come on, lady," said his wife restlessly. "My wishing powers are boundless." Oh no, I cannot restrain them any longer. What? I feel like she's been holding these wishes inside of her mortal coil her whole life, and they're going to explode out of her like this is her secret superpower, and she can't contain the wishes. Oh my gosh. "Go down to the flounder. King I am. Now I must be emperor." What, does anything really change? I mean, the scope of your influence, sure, but it's been less than an hour. Like, she hasn't even had a taste of kingdom and serving the people yet, right? "Alas, wife," said the fisherman and us, "why do you want to be an emperor?" "Husband," said she, "go to the flounder. I will be emperor." My wishing powers are at max capacity. They will not be contained. Oh, wife, he said, he cannot make you emperor. I don't like to ask him that. There's only one emperor in the kingdom. Indeed and indeed, he cannot make you emperor. What? Said his wife. I am king, and you are my husband. Will you go at once? Go. If he can make me king, he can make me emperor. An emperor I must and will be. Go. Oh my gosh. So he had to go. Oh, buddy. But as he went, he felt quite frightened, and he thought to himself, this can't be right. To be emperor is too ambitious. Yeah, that's the line. The flounder will be tired out at last. Unless this breaks the curse or enchantment? Thinking this, he came to the shore. The sea was quite black and thick, and it was breaking high on the beach. The foam was flying about, and the wind was blowing. Everything looked bleak. We've come a long way from the calm sunset sea. The fisherman was chilled with fear. He stood and said, once a prince, but changed you be into a flounder in the sea. Come, for my wife Isabel wishes what I dare not tell. What does she want now? Asked the flounder. Alas, flounder, said he, my wife wants to be emperor. Go home, said the flounder. If we just left it there, it would be different than this part. She is that already. So the fisherman went home, and when he came there, he saw the whole castle was made of polished marble, ornamented with alabaster statues and gold. Before the gate, soldiers were marching and blowing trumpets and beating drums. Inside the palace were walking barons, counts, and dukes, acting as servants. My! They opened a door, and it's not a heap of them, I can assure you, I hope, which was of beaten gold. And when he entered, he saw his wife upon the throne, which was made out of a single block of gold, and which was quite 6 cubits high. She had on a great golden crown which was 3 yards high and set with brilliants and sparkling gems. How is her neck? Like, does she have a little apparatus to hold her head up straight on her body? Yikes! In one hand she held a scepter, and in the other the imperial globe, and on either side of her stood 2 rows of halberds, each smaller than the other. From a 7-foot giant to the tiniest little dwarf no higher than my little finger. So small. Many princes and dukes were standing before her. The fisherman went up to her and quietly said, Wife, are you emperor now? Yes, said she, I am emperor. He stood looking at her magnificence, and when he had watched her for some time said, Oh, wife, let that be enough, now that you are emperor. Husband, said she, why are you standing there? I am emperor now and want to be pope too. Go down to the flounder. Why would you want to be the pope? Oh, I think, you can't be married to be the pope, right? Or I don't know how this works. Fairy tales. This one is so interesting. Alas, wife, said the fisherman, what more do you want? You cannot be pope. There's only one pope in the world, and he cannot make you that. Ooh, yeah, good point, fisherman. Does the flounder kill off the people that she's replacing in these roles? He's not just handing her riches and attendants and dukes and barons from other lands, magically transported to her new palace. Is he having to off the people she's replacing? Husband, what nonsense, said his wife. If he can make me emperor, he can make me pope too. Go down this instant. I am emperor and you are my husband. Will you be off at once? So he was frightened and went out, but felt quite faint, and trembled and shook, and his little knees and legs began to give way under him. Oh, buddy, Also, he hasn't fished in so long. I think he liked it just staring at the sun on the water. Now he just goes from the dock to the palace, from the dock to the emperor castle, from the dock to this. He hasn't fished in a long time. The wind was blowing fiercely across the land, and the clouds flying across the sky looked as gloomy as if they were night. The leaves were being blown from the trees, the water was foaming and seething and dashing upon the shore. And in the distance he saw ships in great distress, dancing and tossing on the waves. Still, the sky was very blue in the middle, although at its sides it was an angry red as in a great storm. So he stood shuddering in anxiety and said, "Once a prince, but changed you be into a flounder in the sea. Come, for my wife Isabel wishes what I dare not tell." "Well, what does she want now?" asked the flounder. "Alas," said the fisherman, "she wants to be Pope." I can't really say that one without laughing. I'm not sure why. "Go home then, she is that already," said the flounder. Then he went home, and when he came there he saw, as it were, a large church surrounded by palaces. What? I love it. He pushed his way through the people. The interior was lit up with thousands and thousands of candles, and his wife was dressed in a cloth of gold and was sitting on a much higher throne, and she wore 3 great golden crowns. Round her were numbers of church dignitaries, and on either side were standing 2 rows of tapers, the largest of them as tall as a steeple, dang, and the smallest as tiny as a Christmas tree candle. All the emperors and kings were on their knees before her and were kissing her foot. I thought there was only one emperor. Now there's plural emperors kissing her feet, minus the one she is still. Is she still technically emperor and king and pope? Or does she only have one title at a time? Like if she was at the town crier, what would she want to be? Probably pope, right? Sorry, bringing my fable 2 into this. "Wife," said the fisherman, looking at her, "are you pope now?" "Yes," said she, "I am pope. And please, fisherman, do not ask her or do not mention that this should be the end, because it will not be if you do that." So he stood staring at her, and it was as if he were looking at the bright sun. When he had watched her for some time, he said, "Ah, wife, let it be enough now that you are pope." But she sat as straight as a tree and did not move or bend in the least. He said again, "Wife, be content now that you are pope. You cannot become anything more." "We will think about that," said his wife. Yes, because her wishing powers are untamable. I love it. With these words, they went to bed. Finally, she has been king, emperor, and pope in one day. One day. But the woman was not content. Her greed would not allow her to sleep, and she kept thinking and thinking what she could still become. Like, greed, yes, for sure, but like, also, motivation and ambition, I give her that for sure. Anyway, the fisherman slept well and soundly, for he had done a great deal that day. But his wife could not sleep at all and turned from one side to another the whole night long and thought till she could think no longer what more she could become. Sounds like she needs a bedtime story. Like, her mind is going all night long. She should listen to the story of the fisherman and his wife. It would probably do her some good. Just saying. Then the sun began to rise, and when she saw the red dawn, she went to the end of the bed and looked at it. And as she was watching the sunrise out of the window, she thought, could I not make the sun and man rise? "Husband," said she, poking him in the ribs with her elbows, "wake up, go down to the flounder, I will be a god." Yes, yes, do it, lady, do it. The fisherman was still half asleep. Yet he was so frightened that he fell out of bed. He thought that he had not heard right, and then opened his eyes wide and said, "What did you say, wife?" "Husband," said she, "if I cannot make the sun and man rise when I appear, I cannot rest. I shall never have a quiet moment till I can make the sun and man rise. What does that even mean? He looked at her in great horror. A shudder ran over him. Go down at once, I will be a god. Alas, wife, said the fisherman, falling on his knees before her. The flounder cannot do that. Emperor and Pope he can make you. I implore you to be content and remain Pope. Words he probably did not think he would utter 2 weeks ago. But here he is. So this fish is mighty powerful. Mightily powerful. Then she flew into a passion. Her hair hung wildly about her face. She pushed him with her foot and screamed, I am not contented, and I shall not be contented. Will you go? My wishing powers are not done. I love her. So he hurried on his clothes as fast as possible and ran away as if he were mad. But the storm was raging so fiercely that he could scarcely stand. Houses and trees were being blown down. The mountains were being shaken and pieces of rock were rolling in the sea. The sky was as black as ink. It was thundering and lightning, and the sea was tossing in great waves as high as church towers and mountains, and each had a white crest of foam. So he shouted, not able to hear his own voice, Once a prince, but changed you be into a flounder in the sea. Come, for my wife Isabel wishes what I dare not tell. Well, what does she want now? Asked the flounder. Alas, said he, she wants to be a god. Go home then. She is sitting again in the hut. And there they are sitting to this day. The end. So, that story progressed very fast and then ended very suddenly, like the calm storm following whatever that roiling and boiling sea was. Buddy, oh buddy, I have to appreciate the wife / king / emperor / pope's ambition and declaration of my wishing powers are not done. Like, that's amazing. That's a really good sense of I'm going to achieve these things, but she had her husband ask the fish for them, so I don't know, poor guy really loves her and did everything for her. He just probably wants to fish. But that was the story, The Fisherman and His Wife, or maybe it should be The Fisherman and His King, The Fisherman and His Emperor, The Fisherman and His Pope, The Fisherman and His God. The sky's really the limit. We pushed it to the limits, and the limits were where we were beginning. So, anyway, I hope that you're doing well and this story's calmed you down some, or it's kept you company while you're making something cool. I wish you to have the most wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you for recommending this story to be read. It was quite a journey, and we all got to go on it together finally, so thank you for that. And now, off to sleep and dream what you will, or stay a while and enjoy another tale. Whatever you choose, I'll speak to you again, and until then, stay spooky, my friends. Good night.